The council chamber floated in the darkness between stars. Inside, representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in their designated seats. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur or skin that glowed softly in the dim light. But all of them watched the holographic display at the center of the room with the same expression. Concern. Consul Thavik stood before them, his tall frame casting shadows across the marble floor. His skin was deep blue, and his eyes held the confidence of someone who believed he was right. He gestured toward the display where a small blue planet rotated slowly. "This world has been sealed for 50,000 years, Thavik said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "The humans who live there have advanced enough. They have computers, space stations, and colonies on their moon. It is time we welcomed them into our community." Ambassador Corin, sitting near the front, shook his head. His species was old, one of the first to join the Galactic Council. He had seen many things in his 300 years of life. "The seal exists for a reason, Consul," Corin said quietly. "Our ancestors placed it there. They marked that world with crimson warnings. Do not disturb, it says. Do not make contact. Do not acknowledge their existence." Thavik smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Superstition. Ancient fear from a time when our ancestors barely understood space travel themselves. "I have studied the humans. They are no different from any other developing species. They deserve their place among the stars." High Arbiter Vesh, the leader of the council, leaned forward. She was ancient, her skin wrinkled like old paper. Her species could live for 1,000 years, and she had spent most of hers keeping the peace across the galaxy. "Consul Thavik," she said slowly, "you have not read the full records. You have not seen what we have seen. That world is marked forbidden for reasons that go beyond simple caution. Then share these reasons with me," Thavik challenged. "Show me evidence that justifies keeping an entire species isolated. Show me proof that they are dangerous." Vesh was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "Some records are sealed even from us. What I can tell you is this. Humanity was contacted once before. The results were catastrophic. An entire section of the galaxy had to be cleansed. Hundreds of worlds were affected. The coalition of elder races made a choice that day, a choice that cost them dearly. They decided humanity needed time. Time to grow. Time to change. Time to become something other than what they were. And they have had that time," Thavik insisted. 50,000 years. Surely that is enough." The council erupted in debate. Some agreed with Thavik. Others shouted warnings. In the end, High Arbiter Vesh called for order, but she could not call for a vote. The laws of the council were clear. Any member could make first contact with a developing world if they accepted full responsibility for the consequences. Thavik accepted. Corin tried one last time as they left the chamber. "Please," he said, gripping Thavik's arm. "At least read the restricted files. At least know what you are doing before you do it." Thavik pulled his arm free. "I know exactly what I am doing. I am bringing a new species into the light. History will remember me for this." "Yes," Corin said softly. "It will." Far from the council chamber in the cold space near Mars, Hyunwoo was having a bad day. His salvage ship, the Defiant, had been searching for valuable metals in the asteroid belt for 3 weeks. They had found nothing but rocks and ice. "Tell me again why we took this contract," Daejung asked from the engine room. He was covered in grease, trying to fix a cooling system that kept breaking down. "Because we needed the money," Hyunwoo replied from the captain's chair. "And because you said you could keep this ship running for another year." "I said I could try," Daejung muttered. Ji-won, their communications officer, laughed. She was young, barely 25, but she was the best at her job. She could pick up signals from halfway across the solar system. "Maybe we should just go home," she suggested. "Earth has plenty of jobs for people who—" She stopped. Her screen was showing something impossible. "Hyunwoo," she said quietly, "I'm picking up something strange." "Strange how?" Hyunwoo asked, not really paying attention. Strange in space usually meant a rock with an unusual metal content. Strange like nothing I've ever seen before. "The signal is— It's not using any frequency, we know. It's not radio waves. It's not laser communication. It's something else entirely. And it's getting closer." Now Hyunwoo was paying attention. He pulled up the sensor display on his screen. There, moving toward them at impossible speed, was an object. It was small, maybe the size of a bus, but it was moving in ways that defied physics. It changed direction without slowing down. It accelerated without showing any exhaust or energy signature. Daejung, Hyunwoo called. Get up here now. His friend appeared a moment later, wiping grease from his hands. When he saw the screen, his eyes went wide. That's not possible, he whispered. It's real, Jiwon said, and it's trying to talk to us. Her computer started translating. The message was simple, repeated over and over in hundreds of languages. Some were Earth languages, others were completely unknown. Greetings from the Galactic Council. We come in peace. Please respond. The three of them stared at each other. Hyunwoo's hands were shaking. This was impossible. There was no alien life in the solar system. Humans had been searching for 100 years. They had found nothing. Nothing but silence, and now silence was ending. Should we respond? Jiwon asked. Hyunwoo thought about it. Every protocol, every rule said they should contact Earth first. Get permission. Follow procedures. But whoever was in that ship had traveled across the galaxy to reach them. They deserved an answer. Tell them we hear them, Hyunwoo said. Tell them we welcome them. Jiwon sent the message. A moment later, the alien ship appeared outside their window. It was beautiful. Built from materials that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. A door opened in its side and a figure appeared. Tall, blue-skinned, with eyes that held the weight of 1,000 worlds. Consul Thavik had arrived. He entered their ship through the airlock and stood before them with a smile. Through a translation device, his words came out in perfect Korean. I am Consul Thavik of the Galactic Council, he said. I bring greetings from 10,000 worlds and 1 billion species. I bring an invitation to join the greatest community in the galaxy. And I bring proof that you are not alone in the universe. Hyunwoo, Daejung, and Jiwon could only stare. Behind them, unnoticed, their ship's computer recorded everything. The signal was already being transmitted back to Earth. Within minutes, every government, every news station, every person with a screen would know. First contact had happened, and far away. In the darkness between stars, ancient machines stirred. Systems that had been sleeping for 50,000 years began to wake. Sensors that had been watching Earth's solar system noticed the breach. The quarantine had been broken, protocols activated. Messages were sent across the galaxy at speeds that made Thavik's ship look slow. Warning beacons lit up on 1,000 worlds. The forbidden seal had been broken. The humans had been contacted, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news spread across Earth faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every person on the planet knew that aliens existed. Within days, Consul Thavik became the most famous being in human history. Jinsu watched the crowds from his office window. He was Earth's chief security director, responsible for protecting the planet from threats. But how could he protect against something they knew nothing about? The alien ship sitting in orbit was beyond anything human science could understand. We need to know more about them, Jinsu said to his assistant. Everything. Where they come from, what they want, what technologies they have. The consul has been very open, his assistant replied. He's offered to meet with world leaders. He's sharing information about the Galactic Council. He seems genuinely friendly, Jinsu frowned. That's what worries me. Why now? Why us? Why come all this way to meet a species that can barely leave its own solar system? He had no answers. None of them did. Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Hyunwoo and his crew had become celebrities. They were the first humans to meet an alien. Media ships surrounded them. Government officials called constantly. Everyone wanted to know what it was like. It was terrifying, Hyunwoo told the reporters honestly, and amazing. And it changed everything I thought I knew about the universe. Daejung was less interested in fame. He was interested in Thavik's ship. The alien had allowed him to examine some of the technology, and what he found made his head spin. The engines used principles of physics that humans hadn't even theorized yet. The power source was clean, efficient, and generated more energy than a fusion reactor using a fraction of the fuel. If we could understand this, Daejung said to Jiwon, we could revolutionize everything. Power, transportation, manufacturing, everything would change. Jiwon was working on something else. Thavik had provided access to the Galactic Council's language database. She was learning Galactic Standard, the common language used across thousands of worlds. A young woman named Yuna, a linguistics expert from Seoul University, had joined her. The structure is fascinating, Yuna said, scrolling through alien grammar rules. It's designed to be logical and precise. No room for misunderstanding. Every concept has an exact word. Can you translate the files Thavik gave us? Jiwan asked. Most of them, yes, Yuna replied. But there are some sections that are locked. Restricted information. I've been trying to access them, but the security is beyond anything I've seen. She didn't mention what little she had glimpsed. Fragments of words, references to something called containment protocols. And one phrase that kept appearing. Human persistence plague. Far from Earth, High Arbiter Vesh sat in her private chamber, reading reports. Thavik's first contact had been successful. The humans had welcomed him. No violence, no panic. They were handling the revelation better than most species did, but that wasn't what worried her. What worried her was how quickly they were advancing. The reports from her agents on Earth were alarming. Human scientists were already making progress understanding Thavik's technology. Not full understanding, but progress. In just days, they had grasped concepts that took other species years to comprehend. Vesh pulled up the restricted files. The ones that only Council leaders could access. The ones that explained why Earth had been sealed. The first contact 50,000 years ago had started peacefully. The humans of that era were primitive, barely discovering agriculture. The aliens who contacted them were explorers, curious about this unusual species that seemed to adapt to any environment. They shared knowledge, simple things at first, mathematics, basic astronomy, agricultural techniques. Within a generation, humans had mastered those concepts and created new ones. They asked questions no other species asked. They made connections that seemed impossible. They took ideas from completely different fields and combined them in ways that shouldn't work but did. Within 5 generations, humans had space travel. Within 10, they had colonies on a dozen worlds. Within 20, they had spread across hundreds of systems. They didn't conquer through violence. They conquered through persistence. They simply wouldn't stop, wouldn't slow down, wouldn't accept that something was impossible. When they hit a barrier, they found a way around it. When they faced a problem, they solved it. When they encountered other species, they learned from them, traded with them, integrated with them. The elder races had watched in horror as humanity spread like wildfire. They tried diplomacy. They tried trade restrictions. They tried isolation. Nothing worked. Humans simply adapted and continued. Finally, the elder races made a choice. They couldn't destroy humanity. Too many species had already integrated with them. Too many worlds depended on human innovation. So they did something else. They erased them. It took a coalition of the 5 most powerful species in the galaxy. It took weapons that had been locked away since the ancient wars. It took 2,000 years of careful, methodical work. Every human colony was found. Every human ship was tracked down. Every trace of human presence was removed from the galaxy. The species was pushed back to their homeworld, their memories erased, their technology destroyed. They were reset to a primitive state, and then Earth was sealed, forbidden. Do not disturb. The hope was that given time, given isolation, humanity would evolve differently. That the drive that made them spread across the galaxy might be tempered by wisdom, that they might become something the galaxy could live with. Vesh closed the file. 50,000 years had passed. Had it been enough? Would this new humanity be different from the old one? She feared she already knew the answer. Prepare the containment fleet, she ordered. Send them to Earth's solar system. Tell them to stay hidden, but be ready. If the humans show signs of the old patterns, we may need to act quickly. On Earth, Jinsu was having the same fears. He had managed to access some of Thavik's ship systems, not through hacking, but through simple observation. The ship's computer had to communicate with Earth's satellites. That communication could be intercepted. What he found disturbed him. There were files in Thavik's database labeled Human Containment Protocols, references to quarantine procedures, and a detailed analysis of human psychology that suggested the Galactic Council knew far more about humans than they were sharing. Why would they need containment protocols for us? Jinsu asked Yuna when she arrived at his office. We've never even met them before. Yuna hesitated. She had found something too. A partial translation of an ancient text. I think they have met us before, she said quietly. I think this isn't first contact. I think it's second contact. She showed him what she'd found. The fragments of history, the references to previous human expansion, the warnings. Jinsu felt cold. If that's true, what happened? Where are the colonies? Where are our ships? I don't know, Yuna admitted. But I think something bad happened. Something so bad that they erased us from the galaxy and locked us away on our own planet. And now Thavik has let us out, Jinsu finished. Outside, Consul Thavik stood before the United Nations, making promises of friendship and cooperation. He talked about the wonders of the galaxy, the thousands of species, the peaceful civilization that spanned millions of light years. He believed every word he said. He didn't know about the containment fleet approaching Earth. He didn't know about the ancient protocols activating across the galaxy. He didn't know that on 100 worlds, species were preparing to evacuate their border territories. Most of all, he didn't know what he had actually done by breaking the seal. He thought he had freed a species unjustly imprisoned. In reality, he had released something the galaxy had tried very hard to forget. 6 months after first contact, Daijung stood in a laboratory surrounded by human engineers. In front of them was a prototype, a human-built ship using principles learned from Thavik's vessel. It wasn't as advanced. It wasn't as elegant. But it worked. "We've done it," Daijung said, unable to believe it himself. "We've built a faster-than-light engine." The engineers cheered. Jinsu, watching from the observation window, did not cheer. He saw how quickly they had accomplished this, how they had taken alien technology and made it their own, how they had improved on some aspects, found shortcuts the aliens hadn't considered. He saw exactly what the Galactic Council feared, and he knew that the age of isolation was over. For better or worse, humanity was about to take its place among the stars once more. The ship was called Horizon's Edge, and it was humanity's first true starship. Captain Jae-hyun stood on the bridge looking at the crew around him. Hyun-woo was there as the navigation officer. Daejung was the chief engineer. Soo-bin, a tactical officer from Earth's defense forces, manned the weapons station. "Are we really doing this?" Hyun-woo asked. "Leaving the solar system? Just like that?" "Just like that," Jae-hyun confirmed. "Thavik has given us coordinates to a nearby trading station. It's only 3 light years away. With our new engine, we can be there in a week." "A week to travel 3 light years," Daejung muttered. "A year ago, that would have taken us 300 years." The launch was broadcast across Earth. Billions watched as Horizon's Edge activated its faster-than-light drive and vanished from the solar system. What they didn't see was the other ships that followed. Admiral Keithrax commanded a fleet of 60 vessels, all hidden by advanced stealth technology. The Galactic Council had sent them with clear orders: observe the humans, and if they showed signs of aggressive expansion, stop them. Keithrax was old, even by his species' standards. He had been alive during the last days of the previous human presence. He had seen what they could do. "All ships maintain surveillance positions," he ordered. "Do not engage unless they become a threat. But be ready. Humans are unpredictable." Horizon's Edge traveled through the strange space between stars. The journey felt instantaneous to the crew, though their instruments said a week had passed. When they emerged, they found themselves looking at something incredible. The trading station was enormous, a structure that dwarfed Earth's largest cities. Ships of 1,000 different designs moved in and out of docking bays. Lights flickered across its surface and energy fields shimmered in the darkness. "This is incredible," Soo-bin whispered. They docked without incident. The station master, a creature with too many arms and eyes that glowed softly, greeted them with what might have been a smile. "Humans," it said through a translator. "We have heard about you. Welcome to Station Meridian. Please follow the rules, respect others, and trade fairly." The crew explored carefully. They saw species they had never imagined. Some walked on legs, others floated. Some communicated with sound, others with light or chemicals. But all of them stared at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something that looked like fear. "Why are they looking at us like that?" Soo-bin asked Hyun-woo. "I don't know," he replied, "but I don't think they're happy we're here." They found out why when they entered a bar. The establishment went quiet. A creature with scales and sharp teeth approached them. "You shouldn't be here," it said. "Your kind was sealed away for a reason." "What reason?" Jae-hyun asked calmly. The creature laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Ask your friend Thavik. Ask him why your world was marked forbidden. Ask him what happened the last time humans were allowed to spread across the galaxy." Before Jae-hyun could respond, alarms blared across the station. Ships were undocking rapidly. The station master's voice echoed through every corridor. "All vessels evacuate immediately. Ancient defense systems have been detected in the sector. This is not a drill. The crew ran back to Horizon's Edge. As they prepared to leave, their sensors picked up something moving through space toward the station. The objects were old, their hulls scarred by countless years drifting in the void. But they were still active, still deadly. What are those? Subin asked. Dae-jung checked his instruments. Automated weapons platforms. The design is ancient. I've never seen anything like it. But they're targeting us, specifically us. The drones opened fire. Their weapons were primitive compared to the Galactic Council's technology, but they were effective. 2 trading ships exploded before they could escape. The station's shields flickered under the assault. We need to run, Yunwoo said. No, Subin replied, her fingers flying across her console. We need to fight. Fight? With what? Jae-hyun demanded. We have 1 ship with experimental weapons. Subin smiled. Then let's experiment. She launched Horizon's Edge toward the drones. The ancient machines adjusted their targeting, focusing all their fire on the human ship. Subin dodged, weaved, and returned fire. The human weapons were crude, adapted from Thavic's technology and Earth's own military designs. But they worked differently than galactic weapons. They were unpredictable. 1 drone exploded. Then another. Subin wasn't following any tactical doctrine the machines recognized. She was improvising, doing things that made no sense strategically but worked anyway. Within minutes, the drones were destroyed. The station was safe, and every species present had watched humanity's first battle in the stars. The reaction was immediate. Half the ships fled the station. The other half sent messages to their home worlds. Humanity had just demonstrated exactly what the galaxy feared. They could fight, they could adapt, and they could win against impossible odds. Back on Earth, Jin-soo received the reports. He sat in his office reading about the battle, about the ancient drones, about the evacuation of the trading station. It's starting again, he said to Yuna. Whatever happened before, it's happening again. Yuna had been working non-stop, translating every file she could access. She had pieced together more of the history, the previous human expansion, the wars, the containment, and she had found something else. Jin-soo, she said carefully, I found coordinates in the restricted files. Hundreds of them. They're marked as sealed worlds just like Earth was. Other quarantine species? Jin-soo asked. Maybe, Yuna replied. Or maybe other human colonies. What if the elder races didn't erase all of us? What if they just scattered us, put us on different worlds, locked each one away, and hoped we'd forget? The possibility was staggering. If it was true, humanity wasn't just 1 species on 1 world. They were scattered across the galaxy, isolated and unaware of each other. We need to find out, Jin-soo said. We need to know the truth. On Horizon's Edge, Dae-jung was examining the wreckage of the drones they destroyed. He had salvaged one mostly intact, and what he found made his blood run cold. Jae-hyun, he called. You need to see this. The captain joined him in the engineering bay. Dae-jung pointed to the drone's core systems. This technology, Dae-jung said slowly. It's not like the Galactic Council's, it's older, more advanced in some ways. And the power signature? I've seen it before. Where? Jae-hyun asked. In the human genome, Dae-jung replied. When we were studying the effects of faster-than-light travel on human biology, we found strange markers in our DNA, markers that didn't match anything on Earth. We thought they were just genetic drift, random mutations. He pulled up a comparison on his screen. The energy signature from the drone's core matched the energy signature from the human genetic markers. These drones were built by humans, Dae-jung said. Ancient humans. Humans from before the seal. The implications were staggering. If ancient humans had built these weapons, they had been far more advanced than anyone realized. Advanced enough to create machines that still worked 50,000 years later. We need to find more, Jae-hyun decided. We need to understand what we were before. But they weren't the only ones reaching that conclusion. Across the galaxy, species were coming to the same realization. The ancient progenitors, the legendary race that had supposedly vanished millions of years ago, might not have vanished at all. They might have just reset themselves, hidden themselves on a distant world, waited for time to pass, and now they were waking up. Admiral Keithrax received the analysis of the battle. His tactical officers were baffled by the human strategy. It made no sense by conventional standards, but it had worked perfectly. They're not just learning our tactics, one officer said. They're creating their own. They're thinking in ways we don't expect. Cathrax remembered the old stories, the tales of how previous humans had fought. They didn't follow the rules of warfare that other species used. They improvised. They took risks no sane commander would take, and they won. Prepare for full containment, Cathrax ordered. Contact the Council. Tell them the situation is escalating faster than predicted. Tell them we may need to implement final protocols. Final protocols meant one thing: the complete destruction of human capability to leave their solar system. It meant destroying their ships, their technology, their infrastructure. It meant ensuring they could never reach the stars again. On Earth, construction had already begun on 12 more starships. Human engineers were improving the designs with each iteration. They were finding shortcuts, discovering principles the Galactic Council had never considered. Consul Thavik watched from his quarters and felt the first stirrings of real fear. He had thought he was bringing a new species into the galactic community. Now he realized he might have unleashed something far more dangerous. He tried to access his ship's restricted files, the ones Corrin had told him to read, but they were locked, requiring Council authorization he didn't have. All he could see was the title of one document: The Inheritors Protocol, What to Do If They Wake. And underneath, in letters that seemed to burn with warning, they must not remember what they were. 3 years had passed since first contact. Earth now had colonies on 12 worlds. Human ships traveled routes that had been empty for millennia, and the galaxy was divided. HFY was a historian, not an explorer. She preferred libraries to starships. But when Jinsu had asked her to investigate the progenitor ruins on the abandoned world of Kepler 442b, she couldn't refuse. The ruins were the key to understanding humanity's past. She stood in the ancient structure now, surrounded by walls covered in symbols. The symbols glowed faintly when she touched them, responding to her presence in a way they didn't respond to other species. It's DNA locked, her assistant said. Only humans can activate it. But how did the progenitors know about human DNA? HFY asked. They supposedly vanished millions of years ago. Humans have only existed for a few 100,000 years. She touched another symbol. The wall rippled and a hologram appeared. It showed a galaxy, but not the current one. This galaxy was organized differently. Species were arranged in a precise pattern, worlds connected by purpose rather than proximity. And at the center of it all were figures that looked distinctly human. No, HFY whispered. That's not possible, but the evidence was clear. The progenitors hadn't been an alien species. They had been human, or rather humans were progenitors, the same species separated by millions of years and a choice that changed everything. The hologram continued. It showed the progenitors at the height of their power. They had mastered physics in ways current civilization couldn't imagine. They could manipulate space and time. They could create and destroy worlds. They had achieved what they called transcendence, a state of existence beyond physical form. But transcendence came with a cost. The progenitors discovered that consciousness without limits became something terrible. They lost empathy, lost connection to physical reality, lost the things that made life meaningful. So they made a choice. They would reset. They would strip away their technology, their knowledge, their power. They would return to a primitive state and evolve again, hoping to find a better path. They scattered themselves across the galaxy on different worlds. Each group was isolated, given time to develop naturally. Earth was just one of these worlds, and the quarantine wasn't meant to keep humans in. It was meant to give them time to grow without the burden of their ancient legacy. We were them, HFY said, her voice shaking. We are them. The progenitors didn't vanish. They just became us. She sent her findings to Earth immediately. Jinsu received the data and felt the weight of it. Everything made sense now. The ancient drones that responded to human DNA. The technology that humans could understand faster than other species. The patterns in human genetics that didn't match Earth's evolutionary history. But there was more. If humans were progenitors, they had access to progenitor technology. And that technology was still out there, waiting to be activated. On the Galactic Council's homeworld, High Arbiter Vesh called an emergency session. The human discovery had been detected. Their access to progenitor facilities was growing. The situation had reached a critical point. They know, she said to the assembled council. They know what they are, what they were, and soon they will have access to everything the progenitors built. Then we must act now, Admiral Cathrax said, standing from his seat. While we still can. Before they become unstoppable. Act how? Council member Drexus asked. He was young, representing a species that had joined the Council only a few centuries ago. You speak of destroying them. But they have done nothing wrong. They have established colonies, yes, but peacefully. They have defended themselves when attacked, but they have not started wars. Not yet, Cathrax replied. But give them time. Give them access to progenitor technology. The previous humans nearly destroyed the galaxy. These humans have the same genetic drive, the same relentless curiosity. They will make the same mistakes. Or they will make different choices, Drexus argued. They are not their ancestors. They have grown in different circumstances. They deserve a chance, the Council erupted in argument. Some called for immediate military action. Others urged patience. A few suggested attempting to work with humans, to guide them away from their ancestors' mistakes. While they debated, Consul Tavik finally gained access to the restricted files. Corin had vouched for him, convinced the Council that he needed to understand what he had done. The files were worse than Thavik had imagined. They detailed every step of the previous human expansion. The diplomatic overtures that became domination. The peaceful integration that became assimilation. The curiosity that became obsession. The previous humans hadn't been evil. They had genuinely believed they were helping. But they couldn't stop. Couldn't accept that some species didn't want to be helped. Couldn't understand that their relentless drive to improve, to advance, to push boundaries was terrifying to species that were content with what they had. In the end, the elder races had chosen to erase humanity not out of hatred, but out of desperation. It was the only way to preserve the diversity of the galaxy. Thavik felt sick. He had unleashed this. He had broken the seal out of pride and ambition. And now the galaxy might pay the price. He had to make it right. On Earth, Jinsu was facing a choice of his own. Daejung had unlocked 3 progenitor facilities. Each one contained weapons beyond imagination. Weapons that could destroy stars, collapse jump routes, reshape planetary systems. We can't use these, Jinsu said, looking at the inventory. If we do, we become exactly what they fear. But if we don't, Daejung replied, Cathrax's fleet will destroy us. The Council has already authorized containment actions. They're preparing to attack human colonies. We need these weapons to defend ourselves. And once we use them, where does it stop? Jinsu demanded. We use them to defend, then to deter, then to expand. It's the same pattern. The same path our ancestors took. Hyunwoo was there too, back from another exploration mission. He had seen more of the galaxy than most humans. He had met dozens of species, and he had seen the fear in their eyes when they looked at humans. They're afraid of us, he said quietly, not because of what we've done, but because of what we might do. Because they remember what our ancestors did, and they don't believe we can be different. Can we? Jiwan asked. She had been translating progenitor records for months. Can we be different? Everything I've read says the progenitors tried to limit themselves, tried to stop, but they couldn't. It was built into their nature. Into our nature. The drive to push forward, to never accept limits. Then maybe we need to choose our limits, Jinsu said. Not have them imposed on us. Not wait until we've made the same mistakes. But choose now while we still can. The proposal was radical. Jinsu wanted to activate the progenitor facilities, but not to use them. To lock them. To deliberately seal away the most dangerous technology, keeping only what humanity needed for defense and peaceful expansion. The reaction on Earth was mixed. Some saw it as wisdom. Others saw it as surrender. The debate raged across every media platform, every government chamber, every street corner. Meanwhile, Admiral Cathrax launched his attack. The containment fleet emerged from stealth around the human colony of New Sol. They broadcast one message: evacuate within 24 hours, or face destruction. The colony had 5,000 people. They had 12 hours to evacuate, not 24. Cathrax was following protocols, but he was also old and tired. He didn't want to kill humans if he could avoid it. Jae-hyun's ship, now commanding a small fleet of human vessels, arrived just as the evacuation began. Subin analyzed the alien fleet. 60 ships against 7 human vessels. The odds were impossible. We can't win this fight, she said, but we can buy time for the evacuation. Then that's what we do, Jae-hyun replied. The battle was brief and brutal. Human tactics were unpredictable, their weapons unconventional. They used asteroid fields for cover, rigged mining charges as makeshift missiles, and flew in patterns that no trained military would attempt. They destroyed 4 alien ships. They damaged a dozen more, but they also lost 3 of their 7 vessels. Hundreds of humans died in the fight, but the evacuation completed. Every civilian got out safely. Cathrax watched the human ships retreat and felt something he hadn't expected: respect. They had fought knowing they would lose. They had sacrificed themselves for civilians. They had shown the kind of courage and honor that the galaxy claimed humans didn't possess. He opened a communication channel to Jae-hyun's damaged ship. "You fought well," Cathrax said, "but this was just one colony. We will move to the next and the next. The Council has ordered us to contain humanity. We will follow those orders." "Then you'll have to fight us at every colony," Jae-hyun replied. "We won't surrender. We won't go back into isolation, but we also won't become what you fear. Give us a chance to prove it." Cathrax closed the channel. He didn't know what to think anymore. On Earth, the debate ended. Jinsu's proposal was accepted by a narrow margin. Humanity would activate the progenitor facilities, but they would lock away the doomsday weapons. They would keep only what they needed for defense. It was a gamble, a hope that choosing their own limits would prove they were different from their ancestors. HFY began the activation sequence. As the ancient systems came online, a countdown appeared. Not a countdown to destruction. The countdown reached 0, and every human alive felt it, a presence in their minds. Not invasive, not controlling, but there, waiting, offering. HFY stood in the progenitor facility as holograms filled the air around her. They showed what accepting the power would mean. Humanity would inherit everything the progenitors had built. Technology that could reshape worlds, knowledge that could unlock the secrets of the universe, power beyond imagination. But the holograms also showed the cost. The same path, the same obsession, the same inability to stop pushing, exploring, advancing. The galaxy would resist. Wars would follow. And in the end, humanity would face the same choice the progenitors had faced: transcend into something inhuman or destroy themselves. The alternative was simpler. Reject the full inheritance, lock away the dangerous knowledge, keep only what humanity needed to survive and grow slowly, carefully, with wisdom guiding ambition. But that meant vulnerability. Without progenitor weapons, humanity would always be weaker than the elder races. Admiral Cathrax's fleet was already moving toward the next colony. Other species were positioning forces to contain human expansion. If humanity chose limitation, they might not survive. Yuna had been working with the translation systems. She discovered one more message from the progenitors, a personal recording from the last of them made moments before they reset themselves. "We failed," the ancient human said, her voice tired. "We reached the stars and thought we had won. We mastered physics and thought we were wise. We reshaped worlds and thought we were gods. But we forgot the most important thing. We forgot to ask if we should." The hologram showed an old woman, her eyes filled with regret. "Our children will not remember us. That is by design. But if they ever find this message, if they ever face the choice we face, tell them this: power is easy. Restraint is hard. And the measure of a species is not what they can do, but what they choose not to do." The recording ended. Yuna broadcast it across every human world. The debate that followed was the most important in human history. Every person had a voice. Every colony, every ship, every settlement participated. They argued in government chambers and street corners, in homes and ships, in person and across light years. Some wanted the power. They argued that humanity needed protection, that the galaxy would never accept them without strength, that choosing weakness would mean extinction. Others wanted rejection. They argued that the path was clear, that accepting progenitor power would make them into something they shouldn't be, that survival without honor wasn't survival at all. Jinsu listened to it all. He was old now, tired from 3 years of constant crisis, but he had to make a recommendation to the Council of Nations. The decision would ultimately be humanity's, but his voice carried weight. He called a meeting of the people he trusted most: Hyunwoo, who had seen the galaxy's diversity; Daejung, who understood the technology; Jiwon and Yuna, who had studied the history; Jae-hyun and Soo-bin, who had fought to defend human colonies, Hae-won, who had discovered the truth, and Consul Thavik, who had started it all. "We need to hear from you," Jin-soo said to Thavik. "You know the galaxy better than we do. What happens if we accept the power?" Thavik looked at the humans around him. 3 years ago, he had thought he was bringing a primitive species into civilization. Now he saw them clearly. They were brilliant, creative, and dangerous. But they were also capable of something he hadn't expected: self-reflection. "If you accept," Thavik said slowly, "you will become the dominant force in the galaxy within a century. No species will be able to match you, not in technology, not in expansion, not in adaptability. The elder races will either submit or be swept aside. And if we reject," Ji-won asked, "you will struggle," Thavik admitted. "The galaxy is not kind to weak species. Cathrax's fleet will continue trying to contain you. Other species will see your limitations and push against them. You will have to fight for every world, every right, every acknowledgement. But we'll still be human," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Not progenitors. Not something that lost itself in power. Just human. Is that enough?" Soo-bin asked. "Can we survive being just human?" Dae-jung laughed suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "Sorry," he said. "But think about what we're asking. Can humans survive? We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived wars and disasters and every challenge Earth threw at us. And we did it without progenitor technology. We did it by being stubborn and clever and refusing to give up. But we weren't facing galactic civilization," Jae-hyun pointed out. "No," Dae-jung agreed. "But we also didn't have faster-than-light travel. We didn't have allies. We didn't have knowledge of physics that other species take centuries to learn. We have tools now. Maybe not progenitor superweapons, but enough to defend ourselves if we're smart about it." Hae-won spoke up. "There's another option. A middle path. The progenitor facilities have different levels of technology. We could accept some and reject others. Take defensive systems but lock away the weapons of mass destruction. Use medical advances but refuse genetic modification technology. Learn their physics but reject their transcendence experiments. A compromise," Jin-soo said thoughtfully. "The hardest choice of all," Yuna added. "Compromise means constant temptation. We'd have access to the locked systems. We'd always know they're there. Always wonder if we made the right choice. Always be tempted to unlock just one more thing." Jin-soo stood and walked to the window. Outside, Earth continued its rotation, peaceful and blue. Billions of people waited for leadership. For wisdom. For a choice that would define their future. "I say we compromise," Jin-soo finally said. "We take what we need to survive. We lock away what would destroy us. And we live with the temptation, because that's what being human means. Not being perfect, not being all-powerful, but making choices and living with the consequences." The vote took 3 days. Every human participated. The results were close but clear. Humanity chose the middle path. They would accept progenitor defensive technology, medical advances, and scientific knowledge, but they would permanently lock the weapons of mass destruction, the reality-altering experiments, and the transcendence technology. Hae-won implemented the locks personally. The systems were designed to respond only to unanimous human consent. Every human alive would have to agree to unlock them. It made the decision as permanent as anything could be. When the locks engaged, something changed. The ancient progenitor facilities across the galaxy acknowledged the choice. They transmitted a message to every species in every language. The inheritors have chosen restraint. The quarantine is lifted by their own wisdom. Let it be known, humanity walks a new path. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Cathrax received the message. He also received updated orders from High Arbiter Vesh. The containment fleet was to stand down. Humanity had proven themselves in a way that no military force could have forced them to. Cathrax opened a communication to Jae-hyun, who was repairing his damaged ship at New Seoul. "The Council recognizes humanity's choice," Cathrax said formally. "Your colonies will not be attacked. Your expansion will be permitted. But know this, the galaxy will be watching. If you break faith with your own choice, if you unlock what you have sealed, there will be consequences." "We understand," Jae-hyun replied. "And Admiral, thank you for giving us the time to make this choice. If you had destroyed us immediately, we might never have had the chance to be better than our ancestors." Cathrax felt something he rarely felt. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, these humans would succeed where the progenitors had failed. The Galactic Council formally welcomed humanity with the signing of the New Covenant. It was a treaty unlike any other. Humanity agreed to share progenitor knowledge with other species. In exchange, the galaxy agreed to accept human expansion and protect human worlds from external threats. Consul Thavik represented the Council at the signing. Jinsu represented humanity. They stood in the same council chamber where Thavik had first proposed contact with Earth. "I broke the rule," Thavik said quietly, before the cameras and crowds arrived. "I disturbed people who were meant to be left alone. I thought I knew better than our ancestors. I thought I was bringing enlightenment." "You broke the rule," Jinsu agreed. "But maybe it needed to be broken. Maybe we needed to face this choice. Our ancestors made it after they had already fallen. We made it before. That makes all the difference." 5 years after the signing, Hyunwoo, Daejung, and Jiwon were exploring again. Their salvage ship was long gone, replaced by a proper exploration vessel. But they still worked together, still searched for interesting things in the dark spaces between stars. They found one of the other sealed worlds. Monitors showed a developing civilization, still primitive, still unaware of the galaxy around them. "Should we contact them?" Daejung asked. "No," Hyunwoo said firmly. "The seal exists for a reason. Every species deserves time to grow, time to develop wisdom before they face the temptations of power." Jiwon smiled. "We're really going to leave them alone?" "We are," Hyunwoo confirmed. "Because we learned something our ancestors didn't. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is nothing. Sometimes the greatest power is restraint." On Earth, Yuna had established a museum dedicated to progenitor history. Children came from all human worlds to learn about their ancient ancestors.